Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the whole flock of Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Gotta give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua. The Most High, the Heavenly Father, his Hebrew name is Yahweh. Not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Yah, not Jah, not Ahaya, not Allah, not Abba, not Yahuwah, not Hashem, not Yahweh, Have, Vave. It's Yahweh. And his only begotten son name in the Hebrew is Yahushua. Not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Serapis Christos, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua, not Yahusha, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos. It's Yahushua. So got to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, Bahashim Rekah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, elder, bishop, and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether accepted or not. And a sincere salutation to all that can believe in this truth and pushing this truth toward the four winds of the earth. The entire world shall light to the whole elect. Shalom to the outworld who are listening learning. You few sisters who are listening learning. I'm Isaiah from GMS Orlando, Camp Prophet of Doom, coming into the lesson, true facts, faith, and edification. Another date edification, Lord will be able to find. And this is copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing non-profit education or personal use tips. The balance in favor of fair use. This is for education purposes only. This is not for monetary gain. I do not own the copyright to these videos. This is for educational purposes only. Lord willing, this be edifying. And this guy is speaking what the Lord is showing in the earth, man. This is Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua showing their power among men. And as it says in Wisdom of Solomon 12, he make it manifest among them that stand in great boldness. Check this out. Check this out.
I want to begin with three numbers that should terrify anyone who understands how the modern world actually works.
See, everybody looking at Babylon the Great. I'm going to run this back. Everybody looking at Babylon the Great like they did some amazing shit by seizing this Russian tanker. Listen, man. Listen to this.
I want to begin with three numbers that should terrify anyone who understands how the modern world actually works. 1240, 3 billion. 12 commercial vessels seized in a single coordinated operation. 40 Russian naval assets deployed simultaneously across 3 maritime theaters. $3 billion in ships and cargo now sitting in Russian custody. But here's what nobody in Washington wants to admit. This wasn't impulsive rage. This was calculated strategy. And the most dangerous part, we taught them how to do it. Let me tell you what happened in the waters surrounding Russia over the past several weeks. Russian forces operating with military precision executed simultaneous seizures of oil and LNG tankers across the Black Sea, the Baltic approaches, and Arctic shipping lanes. American-operated vessels, Allied flagged ships, all taken into Russian custody under legal justifications so carefully constructed that our own lawyers are still parsing the language. The immediate reaction in Western capitals was predictable. Outrage, emergency meetings, threats of consequences. But I have watched American foreign policy long enough to recognize when our officials are genuinely surprised. This time the shock was real. And that should concern you more than the seizures themselves. It means our strategic thinking failed to anticipate what any observer of Russian behavior should have seen coming. Now, let me challenge an assumption you probably hold. You likely believe that international maritime law protects commercial shipping. Those rules exist. They are written in treaties nearly every nation has signed. But rules only matter when someone is willing to enforce them. And when enforcement itself becomes the weapon, the rules transform into something else entirely. The story begins not in recent weeks, but in late 2022. The West, responding to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, unleashed what was described as the most comprehensive sanctions regime in modern history. SWIFT. Disconnection, central bank asset freezes, and most critically, the oil price cap. That mechanism was designed to allow Russian oil to flow while capping prices at levels that would starve Moscow's war chest. From Washington's perspective, it seemed sophisticated, calibrated, smart. From Moscow's perspective, this was the West declaring unilateral authority to dictate the terms of global energy trade. Russia could sell its oil, but only at prices set by its adversaries, and that rule would be enforced through Western control of shipping insurance, transportation, logistics, and financial infrastructure. The message was clear. Violate our terms and your ships do not sail. For nearly 2 years, Russia absorbed this pressure while quietly building alternatives. They redirected exports toward Asia. They expanded Arctic shipping capacity beyond what most analysts thought possible. They constructed new financial mechanisms to bypass Western banking systems. These were not merely economic adjustments. They were preparations for a world where Russian energy would no longer depend on Western permission. But something happened in late 2024 that transformed preparation into action. The United States and allied naval forces began boarding and inspecting tankers suspected of carrying Russian oil above the price cap. Not in Russian waters, but in international zones where freedom of navigation should have protected them. The justification was sanctions enforcement. The reality was that economic warfare had crossed into physical coercion. Moscow's response was methodical. They documented each boarding, each assertion of Western authority over vessels Russia considered legitimate commerce. And then in mid-December came the catalyst. An American-operated tanker collided with a Russian research vessel in northern waters. Several Russian crew members died. Washington called it a tragic accident. Moscow alleged the tanker was equipped with surveillance equipment. They demanded the vessel return for criminal investigation. When it refused, Russia declared the crew fugitives. Whether you believe Moscow's version or Washington's is almost beside the point. Russia had constructed a legal framework, however contested, that justified what came next. By treating the collision as criminal rather than military, they created a pathway for actions that could be presented as lawful policing rather than acts of war. The seizures that followed were not spontaneous. Russian naval units moved simultaneously across multiple zones, boarding and escorting 12 vessels into Russian ports. The crews, hundreds of people who went to work as commercial sailors, found themselves reclassified as material witnesses in ongoing investigations. Not hostages, technically, but functionally they are bargaining chips in a geopolitical standoff they never asked to join. What Russia has done is challenge the fundamental assumption that underwrites modern global trade, that commercial shipping operates in a neutral space protected by international law, insulated from conflicts between great powers. Even during the Cold War, that principle held. Russia has now broken that norm deliberately, using the exact playbook that Western powers taught them. Consider the logic. If American naval forces can board tankers under sanctions enforcement, even in international waters, then why cannot Russia do the same under different legal justifications? If Western systems can be weaponized to enforce price caps, then why cannot Russia use its regional military superiority to enforce its own interpretations of maritime security? This is strategic mirroring. Russia is forcing Western policymakers to confront an uncomfortable question. Can you maintain a system where you dictate rules globally but face no reciprocal vulnerability? The human cost is already mounting. Those crew members in Russian custody are people with families, mortgages, lives upended by decisions made thousands of miles away. When great powers treat commerce as an extension of warfare, ordinary people pay the price first. And here's what keeps me awake at night. The precedent being established extends far beyond Russia and the United States. If this logic gains acceptance, maritime shipping enters a new era of vulnerability. Nearly every commercial vessel carries electronics that a hostile state could characterize as surveillance equipment. Environmental regulations are broad enough to justify almost any inspection. The line between legitimate security enforcement and economic hostage-taking becomes dangerously thin. China is watching this closely. So is Iran. So is every regional power that chafes under Western maritime dominance. They are calculating whether the West possesses the resolve to protect every vessel that might be targeted in the future. More importantly, they are learning that when institutional norms crack, the fracture spreads faster than anyone expects. This is how institutional orders collapse, not through catastrophic failures, but through gradual erosion of shared assumptions about acceptable behavior. Each violation that goes unanswered becomes the new baseline. Each precedent makes the next escalation easier to justify. We are watching that process unfold in real time. The energy markets have already absorbed the lesson. Insurance rates for shipping near Russian waters have spiked dramatically. Some routes have become effectively uninsurable, which means they are commercial.
And he said the same thing that I made the point on earlier, dealing with how Russia is what's this called? Measuring twice and cutting once. Calculated steps, man. He mentioning this.
Non-viable. Capital is flowing away from integrated supply chains toward fragmented systems that price in geopolitical risk at every node. For Europe, dependent on energy logistics that often transit Russian-controlled zones, this represents a strategic nightmare. Firms that thought they had diversified away from direct Russian dependence are discovering their alternative supply chains remain vulnerable. The economic costs will mount slowly but relentlessly. Here is the deepest irony. The sanctions regime designed to isolate Russia has, through its enforcement mechanisms, created conditions for Russia to demonstrate a different kind of power. Not the power to compete with Western financial systems, but the power to impose costs, to create chaos, to force adversaries to operate in permanent uncertainty. This is not a sign of Russian strength. It is desperation dressed up as strategic initiative. But desperate powers are often the most dangerous precisely because they have less to lose from escalation. Russia has accepted that it cannot win a competition based on Western rules. So it is attempting to change the rules, or at least make following them so expensive that others begin to question their value. What should disturb us most is not Russia's actions, but our own failure to anticipate them. For 2 years, we imposed economic pressure through mechanisms requiring physical enforcement. We boarded ships, we froze assets, we dictated prices, and we assumed our adversaries would simply absorb these costs without developing responses. That assumption was not strategy. It was wishful thinking masquerading as policy sophistication. The question before us now is whether this becomes a one-time shock that forces recalibration or the beginning of a sustained pattern where commercial shipping is routinely targeted. The answer depends on choices not yet made. Negotiation could establish clearer boundaries. Continued escalation could normalize seizure of commercial assets as standard practice. We are entering a period where the assumptions that have governed international commerce for decades no longer hold, where economic warfare and military power are inseparable, where every major shipping route becomes a potential front in a conflict with no clear boundaries. The 12 vessels sitting in Russian custody are not just ships. They are markers of a transformation that will reshape global trade for years to come. They represent the moment when the international system's fragile norms cracked under great power competition. And they stand as a warning that the institutional order we took for granted was always more fragile than we wanted to believe. Stay attentive, stay engaged, because what happens next will determine whether we can rebuild some framework for predictable commerce, or whether we descend into a world where power, not law, determines which ships sail and which sit seized in foreign ports.
And see, he mentioned economic warfare. So now you got to go and look up what economic warfare mean. Now I got these other two clips. I want to show this one here. This from Jim Rickards. Check this out.
Germany's in a recession. Germany is in a recession. They've had the full year GDP in 2023 declined. First quarter data looks like a continuing decline. That to the extent you get monthly data, more frequent data, it's very negative for Germany. I just bought a brand new German sports sedan. By the way, my old car I had for 15 years. It had 250,000 miles on it, so I figured it was about time. But I can't. But the new one, I'm very careful about the specification. It was made in Germany, which is good, but the engine was made in Hungary, and I was fine with that. The Hungarians are smart and they're productive, and I'm sure they had good quality control. But I thought, gee, isn't that interesting that Germans are outsourcing the engine production to Hungary, the way Americans are outsourcing everything. Well, it used to be China, now it's Mexico. Why can't Germany make those engines the way they used to? Well, the answer is the energy costs are too high. The two biggest industries in Germany are chemicals and automotive manufacturing, and they're both very energy intensive. Leave aside the fact that you're making internal combustion engines, it just takes a lot of energy to run those factories, and they're outsourcing everything because the internal energy costs are too high. Well, they're the ones who, if not directly, certainly with NATO, blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. So what do you expect? And then again, on an even bigger platform, bigger frame, the U.S. economic sanctions on Russia because of the war in Ukraine. And again, if you're in a war, economic sanctions on your enemy are not unusual. But I teach a seminar on financial warfare at the U.S. Army War College, and it's a kind of a handpicked class, 12 or 13 students. And when I did the class in 2022, it was in April, and it was right after the war began. And I said, let me tell you what's going to happen. We had already put a lot of sanctions on, but there were new ones coming out every day, almost every day. I said, here are the sanctions, here are the legal authorities. We froze their accounts, we banned their exports of strategic metals, we banned their exports of oil and natural gas, we banned imports to Russia of technological equipment, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember Biden screaming, we're going to destroy the ruble, we're going to sink the ruble, et cetera. And I said, none of this is going to work. Not only will it not slow down the Russian economy, it will actually boomerang and hurt us, meaning the Western Europe and the United States, more than it hurts the Russians. And I got a lot of pushback from the class. They were all, they were all gung ho. I mean, I don't blame them. They're military. They want to win a war or whatever. But I said it's not political. I said, I can just tell you that's what's going to happen. The people in charge of it, Wally Adeyemo, who's the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, let alone Janet Yellen, who's completely clueless. She's our Treasury Secretary. Said they understand the law, at least Wally does. Yellen does not. But they don't understand economics. They don't understand how easy it is to work around sanctions, how easy it is to use import substitution, et cetera. So anyway, I taught the class again last spring. I guess my next one will be coming up in a couple of months. But in the spring of 2023, I taught the class. I said, let me tell you what I taught last year's class. And I kind of went down the list. And I said, and I was right about everything. Wow. I was right that the sanctions wouldn't work. I was right that they would boomerang. Today, the biggest problem in the Russian economy is a labor shortage. That economy is booming. It grew about 5% in the fourth quarter of 2023. The ruble is stable. It had the big dip, and then it came all the way back, and then it was stable for the better part of a year. Over a year, went down a little bit, but not a lot. That had to do with oil prices. If they have an economic problem, they have a little bit of inflation, which means your economy is running hot. So Vera Nabiullina, who's the head of the Central Bank of Russia, I say she's the only central banker in the world who actually knows her job. She raised interest rates a little bit just to cool it off. But they have labor shortages. And one of the reasons they have labor shortages is not only did they put the economy on a complete war footing, but so many people are enlisting in the military that they can't get workers in their 20s. I mean, this is the myth in the West, what you would read in in the Sydney and Melbourne newspapers, or the Financial Times, or the Economist, the New York Times, Washington Post, et cetera, is Russia, the troops the morale is low, they're poorly trained, their officers are all sitting around drinking vodka, they don't have a doctrine, military doctrine, et cetera. They're all lies. Every single one of those things is a lie. The fact is, they're winning the war. They're advancing on the entire battle line from Adevka to Kupiansk, and Liman and a number of Bakhmut and a number of other points in between. They're advancing, but the Russians take their time. All you have to do is look at the Eastern Front in World War II. I mean,
Yeah.
there were get the number right, 20 million people killed in combat, and I think another 10 million civilians. But the Germans came in and they killed 5 million Russians, and the Wehrmacht said, "Okay, we're on the outskirts of Moscow. We've taken Stalingrad. We've surrounded Leningrad. We've today's St. Petersburg. We've killed 5 million Germans, or sorry, 5 million Russians." But then the Russians came back with 5 million more, and then 5 million more. In other words, the Wehrmacht and the German intelligence had no idea quite what they were dealing with in terms of Russia's ability to mobilize, and that's still true. But you look at the Battle of Kursk in 1944, late 43, early 44. They didn't rush into anything. They had a war of attrition. They wore down the Germans, and then they surrounded them. They enveloped them in what's called a cauldron, and they annihilated them. But they weren't in any hurry about it. And it was only when the Germans had been annihilated that they moved to Warsaw and Berlin. Well, they're doing the same thing in Ukraine. They're not marching to Kiev, not yet. Give them time, but they are annihilating the Ukrainians on the battlefront. And now that the U.S. Congress looks like it's not going to approve any further aid to Ukraine, the EU did it reluctantly. But even the EU, I think it was 50 billion euros, if I'm not mistaken. But Hungary insisted that that be in 4 annual installments, not all at once. So whatever that comes to, it's like 13 million. 13 million euros is not going to. That's barely enough to pay the oligarchs in Ukraine, and the U.S. is contributing nothing right now. So Ukraine is losing badly on all fronts. But getting back to the economics of it, which is where we started, the Russian economy is booming. They're running a little hot. They have labor shortages. They're on a total war footing. They're making several million 155 millimeter shells per year. The United States and NATO's arsenals have been depleted. We don't have any more 155 millimeter shells. That's why we're sending them these cluster bombs, because that's all we have left. The U.S. is begging places like South Korea, which had some, to say, hey, could you give us your 155 millimeter shells, we'll send them to Ukraine. South Korea says, well, we might need them ourselves, because the North Koreans are making noise. The Israelis need them to fight in Gaza. And so how did the Western arsenals get completely depleted? That was the other thing. We're going to wear the Russians down. There'll be nothing left of them by the time we're done. Again, the opposite has happened. The Western arsenals are depleted. The German Leopard tanks are blown up on the battlefield. The British Challenger tanks are blown up on the battlefield. The United States sent them some Abrams tanks, which is our top-of-the-line tanks. The Pentagon called Zelensky and said, please don't use them, because we don't want any pictures of them burning on the battlefield. It's really bad for sales. So they have some Abrams, but they won't use them because they know the Russians will blow them up with mines, drones, artillery, and bombing. It's kind of the world's turned upside down. But again, just to summarize, whether it's Ukraine, strategic metals, uranium, which you mentioned, energy generation, industrial production, deindustrialization, you can't understand, and they're all big topics. You can't understand any of them separately from the Green New Scam, and financial warfare, and a lot else going on the political side.
So listening to this, the plans of the Lord, man, these people have no understanding. You can't go against Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah, man. The Lord got these Russians set up for a reason. There's a reason Ezekiel 38 is written, man. Hey, and everybody is falling behind Babylon the Great America, man. This is why Obadiah 1:7, as it reads, All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were in peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They ate thy bread, have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. All this is because of Babylon the Great. Now I want to play this because this is the main topic of this, man. World War III, used with intercontinental ballistic missiles, but it's Babylon the Great that's causing.
Is the air component, the JL-1.
I'm sorry, it's the elites that's using Babylon the Great to bring all this forth. And Russia is the spearhead of this, man. So let's go back again.
A sudden flare lights up the Pacific sky, a mysterious launch racing through space, faster than anything seen before. In distant control rooms, alarms flash and analysts stare as the label appears, DF-61. Hours later, the same missile rolls past Tiananmen Square, revealed as China's newest intercontinental breakthrough. But this was more than a parade. It was a message to the world. A message that the balance of power, once stable, is now being rewritten missile by missile. China's latest missile showcase didn't emerge suddenly. It's the result of decades of deliberate technological layering. At its core lies a fully realized missile triad across land, sea, and air, designed for depth, flexibility, and resilience. On land, China revealed what experts described as 9 major intercontinental systems, including the DF-5C, DF-31BJ, DF-41, and the brand new DF-61. The DF-61 is road mobile and appears to evolve from the DF-41 platform, with a transporter erector launcher that keeps the missile sealed in a canister until use. It's believed to carry multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, MIRVs, allowing several payloads to deploy from a single launch. The older DF-5C, on the other hand, uses liquid fuel and remains silo-based, but continues to be an essential pillar because of its extreme range, capable of reaching virtually anywhere on Earth. The second element of this triad lies beneath the sea. The JL-3 submarine-launched ballistic missile is China's most advanced naval missile to date. It succeeds the JL-2 and can reportedly reach intercontinental distances with multiple payloads. This SLBM will be deployed aboard the upcoming Type 096 nuclear-powered submarines, forming the quiet, mobile segment of China's deterrent force. Submarines carrying these missiles can operate far from the mainland, complicating tracking efforts and ensuring that even if one leg of the triad were compromised, others would remain active. Completing the triad is the air component, the JL-1 air-launched ballistic missile. This system, displayed alongside the land and sea missiles during the 2025 parade, represents the aerial element of China's strategic deterrent. It is believed to be carried by the H-6N bomber and potentially future stealth bombers, extending reach beyond coastal waters and offering flexible deployment. The JL-1 reportedly achieves a combined range of up to 8,000 kilometers when launched from altitude, bridging the gap between tactical and intercontinental missions. If the first section of China's missile strategy is about endurance, the second is about disruption, breaking the boundaries of speed, accuracy, and control. Among the standout systems displayed in 2025 was the DF-17, equipped with a hypersonic glide vehicle. Unlike conventional ballistic missiles that follow predictable arcs, this weapon travels at hypersonic speeds, estimated above Mach 5, and glides along the edge of the atmosphere, adjusting direction mid-flight. Its range is believed to span roughly 2,000 kilometers, which positions it perfectly for regional deterrence and rapid precision strikes. What makes it revolutionary is maneuverability. It can shift course horizontally and vertically, making it extremely challenging for modern missile defense systems to intercept. In essence, the DF-17 isn't about greater destructive power. It's about compressing reaction time and overwhelming traditional radar tracking. But China's hypersonic progress doesn't stop there. Alongside the DF-17 came a new family of anti-ship and coastal defense missiles under the YJ series, including the YJ-15, YJ-17, YJ-19, and YJ-20. Each represents a different technological approach, forming a diverse portfolio of high-speed maritime systems. The YJ-17 is particularly intriguing. It uses a two
So that video with Jim Ricketts, how Germany falling, a couple other countries, it's because the policies of America, Babylon the Great. But then you gotta understand this is an Edomite system. They have to fall anyway. And when you read Revelations 13, it reads this. Revelations 13:1. And I stood upon the center of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads is these Edomite systems. The 10 horns also. Edomite. This is the Edomite beast, and upon his horn 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. This is the beginning rulership of the so-called white man, starting with the Greeks, Alexander. And his feet was the feet of a bear, which is today, this bear is Russia. No matter how this story plays out, it doesn't matter how the Lord slow it down, and then they speed up, and then it slow down, and then it just constantly flow. The end of this Edomite system is going to end with the Russians. That's what the bear represent. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet was the feet of a bear. And this is where we at now, when you go in Daniel 7, of this statue. The head of gold, the chest and the arms of silver, the waist or the torso and the thighs of bronze, and the legs of iron, and the feet and the toes, iron and clay mix. It reads, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, which goes into Great Britain. And the dragon gave him his power, the dragon which is the Roman Empire, and his seat and great authority. And this is why you have the Senate seat, the Senate House here, the Congress, all that goes back to the Roman Empire, which is called Democrats and Republicans, the plebeians and the patricians. So, no matter how this story goes, Russia's the end of it. So, as Jim Ricketts mentioned in Germany, these countries is going to fall because it's America that's going to destroy everything. It's America, Babylon the Great, and the state of Israel. Let's get this. In Jeremiah 49, and this is it's just this Edomite system, man. This is Jeremiah 49 and 20. Therefore hear the counsel of Yahweh that he have taken against Edom, that set proclaim so-called white men, but the elites of them, and his proposes that he have proposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. Same precept, Jeremiah 50 and 45, one chapter over. Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord that they have taken against Babylon. But what it said in Jeremiah 49 and 20, it said against Edom. Because Babylon is ran, the modern day Babylon the Great is ran by Edom. And his proposal that he had proposed against the land of the Chaldeans, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. Which is the precept also to 2 Ezra 11:39. Are not thou it that remaineth of the 4 beasts, whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times may come through them? Them who? The elites. Let's go back to this. Because this is China's DF-61 unveiled the dragon's message to the world. And this DF-61, 60 intercontinental ballistic missile warheads and 1 hydrogen bomb.
Stage booster to propel a glide vehicle capable of hypersonic flight toward its target. Its design suggests a flattened, aerodynamic structure
Now
that
look.
can maneuver at high.
This is one missile defense system with 60 intercontinental ballistic missile warheads, right? With 1 hydrogen bomb. That's just 60 warheads. Revelation 9:16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. And I heard the number of them. Now when you go to, let's go to this in the blue letter. See if the blue letter give it to us. Revelation 9:16. Let's see what I'm sorry. I meant to go to the translation. Let's see. The number of mounted troops was 200 million. See? There it is. CSB. The number of mounted troops was 200 million. I heard the number. The NKJV. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. So if one of those, the one that China got right now displaying, the DF-61 with 60 missiles, 60 warheads, and 1 hydrogen bomb. Come on, man. Here is the NASB-20. The number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. 200 million. The NET. The number of soldiers on horseback was 200 million. This ain't talking about no soldiers on horseback. Revelation 9:16. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. This is the same vision that Joel saw in Joel chapter 2. And them that sat on them having breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. By these three was a third part of men killed. This is what I tell you in Isaiah 9:5. For every breath of the warrior with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. By these three were the third part of men killed, by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone, which issue out of their mouths, which is the warheads. For their power is in their mouth, the warheads, and in their tails, because these intercontinental ballistic missiles get propelled. For their tails were like unto serpents, leaving a smoke trail, and had heads, and with them they do hurt. Let's go back to this.
High speeds, providing both range and evasiveness. The YJ-19, meanwhile, employs an air-breathing scramjet engine, sustaining extreme velocity over longer distances, while the YJ-20 is thought to integrate features of ballistic and cruise missiles for flexible targeting. Even the YJ-15, a supersonic predecessor using ramjet propulsion, continues to play a role, bridging older technology with new generation designs. The significance of these developments is how they reshape the maritime balance. Traditional carrier groups rely on early detection and late.
And I'm going to read this again, man. I read this earlier. America has led its allies, its neighbors, into a way that is not good, man. Proverbs, read again, 16:29. A violent man enticeth his neighbor, and leadeth him into a way that is not good. He shutteth his eyes to devise forward things. Moving his lips, he bringeth evil to pass. This is what America has done to all its allies, man. Therefore, everybody gotta suffer.
Layered defense. Hypersonic and supersonic missiles challenge that by arriving too fast for interception windows to remain effective. Instead of trying to sink fleets, these systems effectively deter their presence, creating no-go zones that make it risky for opponents to operate too close. Every major unveiling tells a story, and this one was more than a technical milestone. The September 2025 display was also a message, a form of what analysts call missile diplomacy. Rather than confrontation, it was strategic communication, a demonstration that technology and readiness can influence negotiations, deterrence, and perception without a single missile ever being launched. By revealing the full nuclear and conventional triad together, land, sea, and air, China signaled a transition from development to maturity. For decades, its strategic systems were described as emerging.
Man,
Now, the display announced that its missile network is fully operational, diverse, and modernized. It conveyed that Beijing's focus has moved from achieving parity to defining innovation standards in precision delivery, mobility, and system survivability. This message wasn't just for domestic audiences. It also targeted the global strategic community. For the U.S. and its partners, the implication was clear. Traditional doctrines built around slow-moving carrier formations or distant bases must evolve to survive in environments saturated with long-range, high-speed systems. The new generation of Chinese missiles reaches farther, reacts faster, and complicates defensive planning in entirely new ways. International reactions have already begun to surface. Reports from defense circles indicated that major powers are reassessing production rates, logistics, and missile defense coverage. Some have accelerated next-generation modular missile programs, while others are expanding aerial surveillance and early warning constellations to adapt to the hypersonic era. For China, the payoff is multidimensional. The missile demonstration reinforces its image as a global leader in advanced propulsion, guidance, and composite materials. It also strengthens regional deterrence, providing tools that ensure stability through capability rather than through confrontation. The systems displayed, from the DF-61 to the JL-3 and DF-17, symbolize technological confidence and strategic endurance. Analysts describe this evolution as a shift from passive deterrence to active influence, where the existence of these systems shapes diplomatic and military behavior alike. In that sense, the September 2025 parade was not merely ceremonial. It was a carefully choreographed statement about balance, innovation, and the future of strategic competition. For the first time in modern history, the global missile conversation is no longer about who's catching up, but who's leading the tempo of change. China's 2025 missile showcase marks more than an arms milestone.
In Joel and Revelations 9, that John, they both saw the same vision of these intercontinental ballistic missiles, man.
It represents a technological transition, from the DF-5CS historic reach to the JL-3's underwater mobility and the DF-17's hypersonic precision. This arsenal reflects a nation that has fused engineering depth with strategic intent. The world's response, from increased investment to new defensive innovations, shows how profoundly these developments resonate. In this emerging era, supremacy is no longer about fleet size or territory. It's about reach, reaction time, and resilience. The display in...
But you got niggas out there talking about missiles ain't in the Bible, man. Man, all this, look at this. All this World War III, man. Massive casualties. ICBM deployed by Moscow. Come on, man. This all in the news, man. In the news, man. U.S. seizure of Russian flagged oil tanker. Man, Russia just, man, you just played the first video. You see what Russia just got from Babylon, man? America. Trump's nuclear ultimatum to Russia. Are we on the brink of what?
I'm not so interested in talking anymore. He's
Are we on the brink
he
of World
talks.
War
We have
III?
such nice
Yes, we is,
conversations,
man.
such respectful and nice conversations, and then people.
This is exactly what this is, man. Anyway, man, I just want to show something that Lord willing, come back tomorrow, Lord willing, in the morning. Hey, Lord willing, man, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahushua, Ba'ashim, Rekak, Wadash. Dub honors. This is it right here. Dub honors to the apostles, Elder Bishop Nazar, Great Millstone, root well, teach well. Who are the apostles as of all Israel, ready accepted or not? And a sincere salutation to all that I can believe in this truth and pushing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, shedding light to the whole elect. Shalom to the Akwath who are listening, learning. If you sisters will listen, learning, do have tune in. May Yahweh Bashim Shah continue bless you in your houses.
In Beijing wasn't about
Blessing and
dominance.
election be upon your houses. Till next time, I say Shalom. What a ball, man, going down, man. Hey, we here. Stay prayed up. Hey, as World War III draw nigh, the infrastructure, the mark of the beast, is already set up. We just waiting for what they call it, order of chaos, right? Order out of chaos. Odessa next, the last body bags of Ukrainian soldiers. Man, look at this, man. Russia is mass producing 1,000 km Iskander missiles. Man, look at this, man. Can America defend? China's DF-61 missile threatened U.S. cities in 20 minutes. Ooh. See what I'm saying? Look at these two right here. Russia is mass producing 1,000 km Iskander missiles. Can America defend? Hold on, man.
All right. Picture this for a second. A single, massive
Come on,
missile
man.
slowly rolls out from a camouflaged underground tunnel, deep in the heart of central China. Just 20 minutes later, that same missile could unleash a volley of 14 individual warheads, each one precisely aimed to obliterate a different major U.S. city. And here's the kicker. Right now, absolutely nothing in the American arsenal has a guaranteed
See
way
this
to stop
how they
it.
talking
This isn't
See this? How they talking about this is bad for China, while China is terrified of this U.S. Navy ship. Man, stop that bullshit, man. But this is the garbage that Babylon the Great will push out.
some sci-fi nightmare, folks. That missile is very real,
Man.
it's highly mobile, and it goes by the name of the DF-61. It's the kind of weapon that changes everything. The world got its first public glimpse of the DF-61 at Beijing's impressive 2025 Victory Day Parade, a display designed to send a clear message. But make no mistake, the Pentagon hasn't just been casually observing. They've been tracking this beast for years. Its official range? A staggering 15,000 kilometers. Let's put that into perspective. That means virtually every major capital, whether you're talking New York, London, Berlin, or Tokyo, sits squarely within its bullseye. This isn't your grandfather's ICBM. Unlike some of China's older, clunkier rockets that needed days of preparation and fueling, the DF-61 is solid-fueled. What does that mean in practical terms? You can essentially open a barn door, pop up the launch canister, and have it ready to fire in a matter of minutes. This isn't a fixed target either. A monstrous 16-wheel transporter erector launcher, or TEL, carries this missile along China's vast highway network. Imagine the challenge. An adversary can't possibly know where this mobile missile base will emerge next.
Hey, man. Boy, we gonna need that spirit of intervention for this one. For real. How the hell Jake put, man? Listen, man. So while everybody playing games, the Lord got the hooks into Gog, man. I'm gonna close with this. Isaiah chapter 9 and 5. For every battle of the warriors with confused noise and garments rolled in blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire, man. This is serious. And Jacob's around here playing games Well, the Lord is flexing his power, man. Oh, let me close with this. This is Wisdom of Solomon 12. I'm going to start at 15. For as much then as thou art righteous thyself, thou orders all things righteous, thinking it not agreeable with thy power to condemn him that have not deserved to be punished. For thy power is the beginning of righteousness, and because thou art the Lord of all, it maketh thee to be gracious unto all. For when men will not believe that thou art of a full power, thou showest thy strength, and among them that know it, thou makest their boldness manifest. But thou, mastering thy power, judgest with equity, and orders us with great favor, for thou mayest use power when thy will. Hey, and if you, man, Isaiah, the Lord about to flex. The Lord about to really flex, man. Isaiah 26 and 7. The way of the just is uprightness, thy most upright. Do away the path of the just. Yeah, in the way of thy judgments, O Yahweh, have we waited for thee. The desire of our soul is to thy name, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, and to the remembrance of thee. With my soul have I desired thee in the night. Yeah, with my spirit within me will I seek thee early. For when thy judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world will learn righteousness. And for most of the people, as it says in 2 Ezra 9, it's going to be through death by pain. Lord was edifying. And give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Rikah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, the elder bishop, and elders of great millstone, who rule well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, really accepted not. In the sincere salutation to all that can believe in this truth and pushing this truth, but the four winds of the earth, the entire world shall not to don't forget. Shalom to the outworld who are listening learning. You feel sisters who are listening learning. Hey, until next time, I say shalom. Walk a bubble ball. Stay prayed up. May Yahweh Bashim Yahushua continue to bless you in your houses. May the blessing of blessing be upon your houses. Shalom.